Item 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning. It is now 10:55 a.m. I'll call the Sewage and Water Board Audit Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Cole,
Present?
Director Duplessis,
Here.
Director Anthrop, Director King. Chair, you do not have a quorum, but this presentation item.
Okay, we'll proceed with the presentation item and we'll not be taking any action at this meeting. All right. Mr. Sutherland, please proceed with the fourth quarter audit department update.
Thanks so much. I'll wait till it gets up on the screen first to make sure everyone else sees it at home. Might have had to restart the projector, so bear with us. There we go. So the main thing I wanted to go over this quarter was no report, but we did finish out one of our advisory or consulting engagements this quarter. It was a QA/QC of billing. The way this started, just a little background, House Bill 965 was passed during the 2024 legislative session. That became effective as law Act 393 when the governor signed it towards the end of May of that year. It became effective 120 days later. The two things that it really established was an arbitration, but the purpose for this would be established an option for fixed rate or flat rate billing for the customers during the duration of the rollout of smart metering, right? So as I said, it went into effect 9/24/25. During summer and fall of last year, the customer service department did the integration into CSM to give that option to customers. They would have to opt in, as I just said. Towards the end of the year, when we started doing the audit plan for 25, spoke with Suzanne, and she said, we have comfort that it's working, but it'd be nice to have a little more comfort. So, but we just don't have, time to do so many recalculations. So I said, this is perfect. We can help, right? So we added to the 225 audit plan as a consulting or an advisory engagement to aid in the effort. And it went well. We just finished it up. And as I said, at the end of Q3 of this year, we did 5 batches of bills. The batches were between 20 and 25 each. We agreed upon a recalculation calculator with the customer service department. They really designed it. It was a nice little Excel spreadsheet that lets us to go by line to recalc things. There were variances. We didn't follow up on the variances because this is a consulting or advisory engagement versus an assurance engagement, but I can say that they tapered off towards the end. So by the last 2 batches, we were seeing very minimal variances in the bills. So as I said, we wrapped it up at the end of Q3. It went very well. I thought it did. You can ask Susanna if she thinks so, but I don't mind speaking for her that she's appreciated the help. But fixed rate billing is now in its waning stages, right? So smart metering is almost completely, actually we've passed substantial completion, I should say that. And I checked with them last week. There's only 364 accounts now that are left that are receiving fixed rate bills. So good effort by us, I thought. Like I said, this was more of an advisory engagement, so there's no report. But these are the kind of things that we can do to help out around the utility when help is needed, and I was proud of it. So of the other stats that we have going on, we issued the service connections and inspections report earlier this week. You have audit committee should have received a copy. Management has a copy. We are in the management response period for that. Management gets 30 days to respond, so we won't present on those issues today. Act 393 compliance, I'm in the testing phase of that. That's Act 393 of 2023. So that was the law that was passed to require public entities to give access to ADA recognized disability individuals to meetings like this, to board members and such. We already had a lot of these things in place, but the LLA gave us a directive to really formalize them, to make sure we have either an update to the bylaws, and I'm reading through that now. So we're in the testing phase. I can't see that taking too much longer. Should be able, that will have a report. The use of vehicle rentals and leasing, we kicked that off last week, had the entrance conference last week. What this focuses on is the use of vehicle rentals and leasing. We're focusing on in lieu of fleet, right? What are we spending, and could we do better by augmenting the fleet that we have, just from a budgetary standpoint? And additionally, as another facet of this review is going to be, we've done, I think, making great strides in recent years of outfitting our vehicles to help our people with being able to carry out the truck rolls and the visits and things like that. We have cameras in the vehicles now. They're GPS tracked. So are we foregoing the benefits of those by using rentals and leases too much, right? So there's now an extra risk in there in using that. And it's because we've gotten better, though. So like I said, that kicked off last week. We're in the planning phase of that. And last is records retention. This was another consulting engagement that was put on the plan for this year. The goal was kind of to move towards getting a records retention schedule in place and blessed by the Secretary of State. We've gathered a couple of different categories of documentation and what their requirement as far as how long we need to keep them are. So just a couple examples. So that, employer records need to be retained for a certain amount of time, but if there's a federal grant involved, it needs to be kept 5 years till after the closeout of the grant, right? So there's different schedules for different documentation, and when you make these records retention schedules for the Secretary of State, you have to outline all those categories, right? And once you get it blessed by them, then you can start shredding things on a schedule, right? So yeah, I've gathered some categories for that together. A new development here for this is we now have a new CIO in place, Daryl, who I'm sure everybody's met by now. He started in spring of this year. He's going to be making a request to get some staff under him that will basically be a records management staff. Again, it's still very early in the request stages, but the idea being why it would be under him is because it's going to include electronic management, right? How long do we need to keep, disks and backups and emails and those kinds of things. So I kept it ongoing, so hopefully, fingers crossed, if some things get blessed in the right place, that'll be all shifted under him. I included this slide just to show of where we are with follow-up reviews. Just a refresher, overall reviews become eligible for follow-up according to the date of the longest projected corrective action timeline that's agreed upon by management. And as I've said, and I'm going to stick to this, currently the plan is to begin incorporating these into our audit plan starting this year, 2026. I think we do good work. It doesn't really mean anything, though, unless it's actually being implemented and that changes are being carried out by management that they've agreed to. So this is the way that we ensure that. Going into next year, we'll have 5 reviews that are either already eligible or becoming eligible. So we'll probably pick at least 1, hopefully 2, if we can squeeze it in. And just a note, generally speaking, these should go faster than the initial reviews because there's no planning phase, right? We don't have to interview staff, do process narratives, make flow charts, so those kinds of things. We're just going to take what was agreed to by management and go test and make sure it's there. So we'll start to incorporate those into the annual audit plan, which this committee will vote on in the spring. Which leads me to this. Q1 2026, as I said, was the management response period for the SC&I review. So in Q1, we'll present the findings, recommendations alongside with management's response. And then the 2026 audit plan, I'll begin prep, planning, and interviews before the end of this calendar year. Discussions with the leadership team and all those kinds of things that we do each year. That being said, if there's any recommendations from this committee, let me know. We have some time to get it out on the plan to be voted upon. If there's any feedback, you know where to find me in general. But otherwise, it'll be reviewed and voted upon via resolution at the Q1 26 meeting. And right now, I think Jamie has that perspective from early March, first week of March.
All right, thank
That's
you,
all I had.
Mr. Sutherland. I had a couple of questions, but I'll,
Sure.
if
I have none.
Dr. Bless is none. You mentioned you were looking or auditing the possibility of leasing or renting vehicles. Does that include heavy equipment?
We're looking at vehicles for this review. If we could put heavy equipment on it. It was more, the way it got on the committee in '25 was, how big is the fleet? And what was driving it is, should the fleet be bigger? And well, what are we spending on leases and rentals to make up the gap, to make up that dearth of inventory? So we could put it on for next year, though. We could do a smaller review on heavy equipment.
Okay. The reason I ask is, through some of the governance committee discussions, there was it was pointed out that there was a need for some newer equipment. I know
Oh.
leasing and renting can be a more economical way to go about that, especially if it's something that you need on a more short-term basis rather than a purchase.
We have 3 contracts where we utilize HERC, United Rentals, and Enterprise. Obviously, Enterprise is just vehicles, but HERC and United both have stipulations in the contract for some heavy machinery. So we might be able to do a smaller review next year as well.
Okay. And I doubt this is where this lies, but I understand there's a compensation study ongoing. Is that under your purview at all?
Compensation?
No.
No.
CAO, got it.
Oh, yeah, it'd be Dave.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
All right, do we have any public comments? One?
Jesse Perkins.
Mr. Perkins? 3 minutes.
Giovanni Perkins. This is for the record, on the record,
Yes, sir.
okay? And I'm gonna ask you all to bear with me because I know this is gonna be redundant because some of the same people that heard the first statement, you're gonna hear it again, but it's necessary, okay? So I'm just gonna read this again and I'm gonna try to speed it up as fast as possible because I know you have a time limit. Okay, so bear with me. I'll go through this real quickly. Okay. All right. At this point, as we are entering into 2026, it feels urgent to name that we are in need for the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans to 100% support a clear and comprehensive plan to shore up the drainage system. We also know that this can and should happen without adding any additional rate increases, fees, or charges of any kind to the residents. The public justifiably has no confidence that if our current public funds are not stewarded well, asking for more is not suddenly going to be the solution. The current solution involves ensuring current budgets are aligned to the most pressing needs and they are spent in the most effective and efficient ways. Therefore, to assist in this happening, we are making the following recommendations on how we believe this can happen. 1, local governing bodies must commit to being deeply responsible to aligning budget to prioritize needs. Drainage is a huge need. Number 2, the $25 to $40 million that the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans needs for drainage should be secured and allocated in 2026 for the purpose of hiring for a designated team of workers dedicated specifically to drainage. We need a team of recruited local residents who are well-trained and paid training and retained for these roles, living wages, and safe, supportive work conditions. Number 3, ensuring that recruitment begins as soon as possible. Treat this as an emergency mission to get ahead in prevention of a future preventable catastrophe. This helps eliminate the high cost of an outside third-party contractor. The current contract is not yielding the work outcomes justified to the cost. Therefore, these dollars should be redirected to hiring local workers at a living wage. Now, we do not know what has already been decided about the $50 million bond that taxpayers voted for this past November 15, 2025. But by the time money is even accessible to the city, it could be around the same time next year. We need action that demonstrates a kind of urgency that matches the need for 100% of drainage lines to be cleaned and cleared, repaired when needed, and working at full capacity. This is separate from and in addition to efforts on green infrastructure. This is not one or the other conversation. We need a work team within the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans that is 100% dedicated to drainage, and we need it started as soon as possible. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Any other public comments?
No other public comments, Chair.
All right. If there are no other matters, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I'll second that one. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are now adjourned.